And thank you to the welcome. Thank you to the welcome group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Rick Hader. I'm an alcoholic. I am. I really want to thank Hero and Young for their talks this morning. Very inspirational and kind of put me a little more in tune. It's early here in Portland, Oregon. I was a little worried because I stayed up a little late last night with my wife, and I hear the meeting begins here at 4:30 in the morning, our time, and so I set my alarm to awaken at 3:30, and it turns out, I woke up at 3 o'clock without need for alarm. I asked God upon awakening to please direct my thoughts and my actions and align my will with His. Give me the power to carry that out in all my activities. Keep me divorced from self-pity and selfish, dishonest motives. And then I come here and I get to see you, all of you beautiful people, wonderful alcoholics from all around the world. What a gift Zoom has become for us. And it's my great honor and privilege to be invited here, and I thank you all for just simply being here. And if there's anyone new, I want to welcome you to what in the beginning for me was a life-saving program. As I began to journey through the steps, it became a life-changing program. And as I've had the great opportunity to share it with others, it's become a life-giving program for me and my family. We'll hear a little bit about that a little bit later on. And I have a sobriety date. It's June 25th, 1991. My sponsor is Bob D. And he knows he's my sponsor. And I have the great good fortune, as I mentioned, to sponsor many others in this beautiful program. I am a member. I have a home group. My home group is the West Portland group. And we meet Tuesday and Friday, Saturday evenings, and here in Portland, Oregon. So delighted to be here with you this morning. In the chapter We Agnostics, it says that, if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. And if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness, they called it. I believe it's a spiritual malady, which only a spiritual experience will conquer. And then a little further on, it says a statement that's so true for me, and I'll explain that in a minute in my story. It says, when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to ask ourselves a question. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or He is nothing. And, my topic today is seeking relationship with God. That's so important to me. I believe that in the foreword to the first edition, it says to show others precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. But later, further on, it says, the main object is to find a power greater than yourself. I come from a long line of alcoholics, both sides of my family. I believe that I was coming into the territory where I was actually physically dependent, addicted to alcohol. I want to say something too. If there's anyone new here, I want to just say this before I get into my story too much further, that if you hear nothing else today, hear this. I have many years ago, I have a friend in the program who's a medical doctor. He's a physician. And he's an orthopedic surgeon, actually. And he said to us one day that of all the fatal progressive illnesses, which alcoholism is a fatal progressive spiritual malady. Alcoholism, he said, of all of those illnesses that he has studied about, alcoholism is the only one where the patient that has the illness, if it's treated with the spiritual program of action outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, in our textbook, if we treat that illness with that solution, the patient actually becomes a better person than they ever would have been had they never even had the illness. Isn't that amazing? So if you're new, you have the opportunity to, much like myself, to become grateful that you have had and have alcoholism, for maybe the vestibule or the pathway for you to become a better person than you ever would have been had you never had it. So alcoholism for me it's a gift for me. I was given alcoholism, and I've been given the recovery from alcoholism through the 12 steps, our 12 traditions, and our concepts of service. So yeah, like I mentioned, the effect produced by alcohol, man, that had me from a very early age. You know, all my troubles disappear, everything goes away. When I drink, I come into the here and now. I become able to exist in the present moment. When I'm not drinking, I'm so restless, irritable, and discontented. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I happen to like 100 proof whiskey and malt liquor. And as I drink that, I started drinking at a very young age. I started drinking beer, lost a paper route. I got invited to leave the Boy Scouts at a young age because we actually got some counselors really sick putting X-Lax into these biscuits we cooked to get cooking merit badge. They got very sick. And so, you know, I had a fun phase. It's also the only fatal progressive illness with a fun phase. I used to talk a lot about that, but I don't anymore, because I don't think anybody knew coming into Alcoholics Anonymous that maybe on this meeting or any meeting where I'm invited to share is on the tail end of a fun phase. We know if somebody is new here today that you're probably not as happy to be here as we are that you're here. But the truth is that we hope for you a wonderful life like we have found here. Toward the end of my drinking, at the end of my drinking, I was 15 years in a marriage, and I had 2 children. I had an 8-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. But the first 15 years of that marriage were very, 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 very rough, and especially the last 5, because I had gotten to the point where drinking was essential. I had crossed over what they call the invisible line. I had gotten to the place where it was no longer drinking for the fun phase. It was no longer it was a necessity. Drinking became a necessity. I couldn't go too many hours without putting alcohol in my system. It was horrible. I would, you know, wake up or come to consciousness in the middle of the night in a pool of my own bodily fluid. I would have to put more alcohol in my system in order to kind of pass back out. In the morning, I would jump into the shower and I had to turn the music up on the radio in the bathroom in order to keep everybody from hearing the noise. I was choking, you know, trying to put a couple of more shots down to kind of steady my nerves a little bit, but my body couldn't metabolize alcohol any longer. I was 38 years old by the time I came here. I started drinking when I was young, when I was 12, 13 years old. So by the time I'm 38, almost 39, you know, my mind is where my alcoholism resides. It was taking me to a place where I'm seeking that as a solution, even though my body can no longer metabolize it. I'm in that shower and everything is leaving my body from the nearest exit. I've got the radio turned up so nobody can hear it. I finally get a couple of shots of alcohol to stay down, a couple of good pops on the bottle, and then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. I can take a little bit of a breath, but the problem is I towel off and I can't stop sweating. I'm kind of going through the DTs. Drinking became a necessity for me, and by that time, I was really, I was swearing off every day. At that moment of each day, I would swear to you, that's it. I'm not doing this again. I'm not going here anymore. And then a strange phenomenon would happen. By around 2 or 3 that afternoon, I would forget all the harm I had just caused in favor of having the idea that maybe a drink would be all right. Maybe a drink would take the edge off that afternoon, that early afternoon. Maybe I could have a couple of nips off the bottle before I even left work that afternoon. Maybe I would go out to see if I could put a little food in my system. This idea would return, the insanity would return, and I would go back to drinking again. Toward the end, it was not uncommon for me to not come home. I would, I would swear that, you know what, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to maybe have a couple of beers. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to have dinner with my family. I'm going to really have, just get this thing. I can control this. I can handle this. It's going to be okay. But I would get in the car, and all of a sudden I would look over on the way home, and I would see in the, place where I used to drink, I would see a couple. I would go, oh, look, there's so-and-so. They're in there. I think I'll just stop to say hello, with all the intentions to just have a couple on the way home, kind of get things a little bit, in order. Before you know it, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I'm not home. I'm on the phone calling her again. Lies. I'm starting the lies. We got some big business going on down here. I just can't break away. I'm here with so-and-so. And and she gets tired of hearing that after a while. So, the calls get fewer and further between, and I just don't come home. And I'm not thinking that my children are there with my wife asking her, where's dad? Where is he? Why is he not home? And for her, in the initial phases, to begin to lie to them, oh, he's busy at work, he's got things to do. And after a while to just say, I don't know. I don't know why daddy's not here. And then eventually when I do return home, they're not out all on the porch jumping up and down. Oh, look, dad's here. There were times when I wouldn't come home till the following day. I was with people I didn't belong with, doing things I should never have done, and staying far too long. Alcoholism really had me. The effect produced by alcohol, the price is starting to get pretty steep. I'm pushing everything of value, the love of my family, across the bar in order to have my right to drink. So there were occasions where toward the end, when I get home, there's a conversation that ensues that's a little uncomfortable for guys like me. She's asking me, where have you been? Who have you been with? Are you drunk again? And for me, I don't know about you, but when I'm in my, it says an alcoholic in his cups is not a lovely creature. I'm not a lovely creature. When those questions come, I get upset. Now, my wife is only about 5 foot tall, maybe $110 at that time. And so I start yelling, I start reacting, I start getting upset, I start wanting to defend myself. And my national anthem back then was, leave me the hell alone. If you worked like I worked, if you came from where I came from, if you do what I deserve to, and then here's the big lie, I'm not hurting anybody but myself, right? Leave me alone, get off my back. I start punching holes in the wall. There's a few times, one of the greatest things I am so terribly ashamed of is that on a couple of occasions when she steps in the way of myself in a drink or starts picking at me like that, I lose my temper and get out of. I lay hands on my wife, my beautiful bride of 15 years, in front of those 2 small children. It got to the point when I would come home, my children would run away. They'd run off and hide because they didn't know what was going to happen once I came into the house. That's where alcoholism took me. And so I had caused a tremendous amount of harm to this loving, beautiful family. And so fortunately, one thing led to another. I got an awkward invitation from that wife. I don't know if any of you have ever had this one where it says, you need to get help or get out of here. We're sick of what you're doing. We can't stand to be around you. We can't watch this any further. Thank God for that invitation, because I wondered, what did help look like? We ended up going to see a counselor. I thought it was a marriage counselor. We've been to a couple of those. But it turns out, I'm so thankful it was an alcoholic. And when I sat down and began talking with this gentleman, with my wife and I went to visit this guy, he starts telling me how he felt before he drank, how he felt, how drinking relieved everything, and how ashamed he was for the things he had done, and how despite that shame, he would make the decision to drink. I got upset because I thought my wife had snitched on me. I remember looking at her. He said, hey, leave her alone. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. That identification with another alcoholic pierced through my alcoholism to to such an extent that it made me believe, it made me admit, maybe I'm alcoholic. And it gave me hope that I'm not the only one that had done the things and thought the things and drank like I drank, that he too was like me. And so it made me agree to, take an intake interview for a treatment center. And I ended up, I always have a fond piece in my heart for people who get sober, not quite at the holiday, because June 25th is not, I couldn't even make the 4th of July. There's a lot of people can't make New Year's, can't make Christmas. That shows not really their idea. And so, I end up going, this intake interview for the treatment center couldn't happen though till after the 4th of July. So I detox at home. And it was horrible. I mean, I'm having auditory and visual hallucinations. I think bugs are crawling all over. I see things in the curtains. I buy all this bug spray. My kids are going, Daddy, there's no bugs. What are you doing? And I finally, that first 4th of July, there's a picture of our family. I'm the one standing in the back. I mean, I just look, everyone's all happy. 4th of July, got all their, things on there celebrating Independence Day, not me, but then all of a sudden I start feeling better. I'm actually home every day. I'm ingesting food. I mean, I'm having some of the early bird promises. I actually had a solid bowel movement for the first time in about 5 years. I'm intuitively know how to answer the phone. And then I think, well, maybe I'm being a little hasty. Maybe I don't need this treatment. Thank God I went to that treatment center. Thank God I went to they knew about me because the counselor that 12-stepped me in that meeting had the book on me. So I end up getting into that treatment center. Thank God he was an alcoholic, the counselor that 12-stepped me. Thank God that treatment center was oriented around sending us to you. I came to you. I went to a noon meeting. I actually got to go to every single day for the first year and a half of my sobriety. I got a sponsor at that meeting. I start going through the steps with that sponsor. It's interesting because that sponsor was an old, kind of a crusty old Marine, and he was legally blind. He had a white cane. I bumped into him at the meeting one day, and he gave me a card. He goes, "Oh, here, kid. Sorry about that. Well, it was my fault I bumped into him, but he gave me a card. Here, call me sometime." I took that card to the treatment center. Hey, here's my sponsor. I didn't ask him. I just told them because I needed that to go to the next stage of treatment. Next phase. And then finally I thought, oh my God, what if they call him to find out if so I thought I better tell him. So I remember telling him, Jack, I told him, he goes, oh, great. You can give me rides. You can take me to the meeting. You can, and I fell in love with the late, great Jack Kimball, my first sponsor. I wrote a fake inventory at first. I thought he was blind and couldn't read. And, I had a professor in college that would only read the first 3 pages of your paper and then give you a grade. And I wrote a couple things, and then I started writing a bunch of nonsense. It turned out he had a monocle that he could look and read, and he's writing on here, what the hell? I thought, oh my God, I better get honest with him. He's going to call the treatment center. They'll send me back to phase 1. So I eventually did a real inventory with him, and it wasn't a perfect 4-column thing like it's lined out in our textbook, but it was from my heart. The most horrible things, the most shameful things I had done, the things I regretted so much. Out of that came a lot of defects of character. And, I ended up, really getting attached to that sponsor. And I can remember it came time for us when we got to steps 8 and 9, and he had me saying some prayers. It's not the prayers in our literature, but the beginning for me, see, I didn't come here looking for God. I don't know if any of you, any of the rest of you have, but I came here just wanting to get the heat off. Just wanting to get her off my back, just wanting to learn how to maybe drink a couple days a week, taper it off after a weekend, get back to work, just to get control, just to control and enjoy that great obsession that we have. But what ends up happening is in the morning, I'm saying, dear God, please keep me sober. And at the end of the day, I'm saying, thank you for my sobriety. Please give me enough rest to carry out whatever your will is for me tomorrow. Those were the please and thank you prayers I started with. And then it came time for this amends to my family, and I was flabbergasted. I didn't know what to do. They were used to me being gone in the saloon a lot, but now I'm gone at all these AA meetings. And, I asked my sponsor, Jack, I don't know how to, I'd paid a lot of money back. I'd made restitution, but this family that I had whittled down to the bone, I didn't know what to do. He said, look, it's not, this meditation and prayer is not about sitting on a pillow, blowing out the candle. He goes, just get home and relax and just get to a place. And he also had me doing some breathing to relax because I was full of anxiety. As I breathed in, I would say, the Spirit of God is within me. And as I exhaled, the grace of God surrounds me. So I go home one day and I'm breathing in, Spirit of God is within me. Oh, the grace of God surrounds me. And then I just asked God, I just talked to God. I said, dear God, I don't know what to do on this family situation here. I'd love to make things right, but I don't know how. Please let me know what action I can take. What can I do to set right the harm I've caused this family, the terrible things I've done? And all of a sudden, I hear this fight going on in the back of our house between my son and my wife. He's 10 years old. He's screaming and yelling at her. He's angry. She's yelling at him. And I was the kind of guy, I blamed my wife for everything. Everything wrong in our marriage was her fault. I would say things to her like, if you were a better mother, you ask those kids to do something, you wait till the 10th time you ask them before you really make them come into compliance. If you would make them do things better, the kids are like they are because of you. But in that moment of clarity after that prayer, what I heard was, oh my God, that's not my son talking to her. He's learned that from me. This is the way we do business with the women we love. I've taught this. This is what I've taught my son. Who knows what I've taught my daughter, who's 8 years old. And so, I'm in this moment of trying to meditate about this, but I'm hearing this, I'm upset. I'm like, okay, God, this is not the answer I'm looking for here. What am I going to do about this? And the thought comes into my mind, you like having these AA meetings. Why don't you call a family meeting and see if you can begin to set things right in your family? I'm like, oh boy, okay. So my kids go to bed that night. I talked to my wife and I told my wife, I said, I've had this epiphany. It's not your fault. The problem with our children is because they've learned from me based on my conduct with you that some really bad things. I've caused a lot of harm. She turned about as white as a ghost. I'm not a guy that takes responsibility. And I said, and tomorrow I'd like to have a family meeting. This was a Friday night. Tomorrow, Saturday morning, I want to have a family meeting. She goes, well, what's that about? I go, I don't know yet. That night when I retired and saying my prayers, thank you, dear God, for keeping me sober. Please give me whatever rest I need to carry out whatever your will is for me tomorrow. I said, and in this meeting, I really need your help. I don't know if I'll have the right words. Please give me the right words so we can have the healing begin in our family. So I slept well. The next day after breakfast, we all got into the living room of our house. And I didn't know what to do, but we set it up. I told everybody, you know what, we're going to have this meeting. I want everybody to know we can have these meetings anytime we want. We laid out a few ground rules, kind of like an AA meeting. We only talk one at a time. We don't cross talk. We don't interrupt anybody. And then the magic began to happen because I said, how do you think baby animals learn? And my daughter raised her hand, my 8-year-old daughter, Shannon. She goes, Dad, I know. It's like monkey see, monkey do. Like on the animal show, the mama tiger is tough with the baby and tosses it around, teaches it how to stalk and hunt and do things. And so it's like baby animals learn from the way they're raised. They go, that's right. It is monkey see, monkey do. I said, but the bad news in this family is I've been a bad monkey. My son's over there. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's the one that had to push my ass up the stairs or throw a blanket over me when I'm blacked out at home. And I said, and the sad news here is that, in this family right now, we can't really say that we love each other. I've caused that much. I've been such a bad monkey. And my son raised his hand. He goes, Dad, I have an idea. I go, okay, Ricky, what's that? And he says, why don't we, a group of my friends and we ride our skateboards in this neighborhood. We live by some deathly hills. These kids were like daredevils. He goes, and my skateboard friends and I, we talk in kind of a secret language. We kind of have this, we kind of have like a secret code. Why don't we make a secret code thing or word or saying that means I love you? And I look over at my wife. She's like, she's just discombobulated. I can't believe this is going on. I go, okay, Ricky, what would that secret code thing be? And he said, why don't we say, Snow bunnies live on Mount Hood means I love you. Mount Hood is a big mountain not far from us. It's an old volcano, and it's a beautiful mountain, and I'm sure snow bunnies live there. But I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I said, okay, that's it. Snow bunnies. So we got together after, and I said, now, we can, again, we can plan vacations. If anybody has a problem, anybody can call a family meeting. We got up, and just like at the end of a meeting, we held hands, the four of us. We said the Lord's Prayer together, and then we all chanted, snow bunnies live on Mount Hood. And I left, and I was working, even though it was a Saturday. I left and went to work a little bit late that morning. I came home from work. It was about probably a week and a half, 2 weeks later. And I went into the kitchen, and my wife was just bawling. She was just crying. And she was not just regular crying. I mean, she had the sniffles. I go, what's wrong? She goes, Ricky just came up, knocked me on the shoulder, said, Mom, snow bunnies live on Mount Hood. I thought, oh my God, what happened here? I abandoned myself to God as I understood God at the time, which I didn't understand him. I looked, I asked for once, for the first time, I prayed for something other than myself, for the love in my family to be restored. How can I do to help this family? I followed the simple directions in our textbook, and that experience became the beginning of the restitution of the love that I had stolen from that family for at least 5 years before then, maybe longer. It was about, I don't know, maybe a month later, my daughter wants to call a family meeting. She's 8 years old. We're like, oh my God, now what? When she was 3, she came downstairs one night in her little onesie, told us we were making too much noise, told us, I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to live here. I go, what the hell? Where are you going to go? You're only 3 years old. I remember telling my wife, I don't know what we're going to do when she's 16, but she's 8 and wants to call a meeting. Turns out she's just ticked off. Ricky gets to pick all the words. I want to change the word. The new word for I love you became squirrels have fuzzy tails, And so, here I keep going to AA. I continue to grow in my recovery. Our family gets put back together. And just like I said at the beginning of this meeting, if you're painstaking about this phase of our development, if you're new and you stay with us and you'll take these steps, you get an opportunity to become a better person than you ever would have been. Here's the story in our family today. That lady I was knocking around and those 2 children were very, very, very close today. What great lessons for children to see that you can, no matter how far down the scale you have gone, that your troubles can be, your difficulties can benefit others. I've given the privilege of helping a lot of people and a lot of families. And that my wife and I, we just celebrated 45 years of marriage together this past June. I've been continuously sober for 3 decades. That blows my mind. I just wanted to get the heat off, remember? I've had the good fortune of being able to become ordained and able to officiate the weddings of both those little children as they're older. My kids are now 39 and 41 years old. I have 2 little granddaughters that have never seen me drink. I have been given an unbelievable life as the result of this life-saving, life-changing, life-giving program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I absolutely love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I adore the people in it. I want you all to know today, I love every single one of you. You've all been loved by a hater. How does that feel? But here's the thing. Shannon Lynn was right. It's monkey see, monkey do. If you're new here, I want you to look for the good monkeys in Alcoholics Anonymous. After all, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. There are monkeys here that don't even eat bananas. There are monkeys that don't even know where the bananas are. So stick with the winners, stick with the good monkeys. I want to let all of you know that, doggone it, snow bunnies live on Mount Hood and squirrels have fuzzy tails. I love all of you. Thanks so much for your company this morning and for allowing me to be here with you to explain how I initially established a relationship with God. It's like I said earlier, to show others precisely how I've recovered is the main purpose, but the object is to find that power. Where I find that power the greatest today is in going through the steps and going through the spiritual program of action with other newer alcoholics That's where God shows up. There are two-way streets here. I can't tell you how many times I've been talking with a protege who asks me for help with a problem. Turns out I have that problem. I didn't know I had it till they bring it up. You know, God works in and through us. It's like it says, God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. I love it at the end where it says to join AA, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Step 3, you know, admit your faults to him and your fellows. Step 5, take step 5, you know, clear away the wreckage of your past. Steps 8 and 9, give freely of what you find. Step 12, and join us. Take the steps to join AA. And, you know, the biggest thing at all, we shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit where we are right now today. And surely you will meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. To all of you, may God bless you and keep you. Thank you so much for your wonderful time this morning. I love you all.